the lawyer in the Fed.
What's cracking? Lawyer in the Fed. Lawyer here. And we're here today once again for 5 rounds. I'm with the Fed, so tell them what it is, Fed.
Yo, what up? Fed here, aka Fed L Castro, lawyer in the Fed. So, once again, it's on. Another episode, another legend, another champion, or in this case, a double champion. One of the greatest, most famous, most beloved UFC fighters of all time are joining us this week. Ladies and gentlemen, Randy the Natural Couture. Round of applause.
Yeah, buddy. The natural is in his house, son. Randy, say hello to these skags.
Hello, you skags, and the lawyer in the Fed.
All right, you guys know the drill. 5 rounds, 5 questions. Let's get it in. Round 1's for the Fed.
So, getting right into it. Randy, first question. You have deep roots to the Pacific Northwest. You've lived and worked and raised a family in the region. What is your take on the current state of ridiculousness in the area?
Round 1.
I'm from Seattle. My family still lives up there, my mom and my sister. I lived in Oregon for 13 years. My daughter lives just outside of Portland. Obviously very concerning now, going on 2.5 months of extreme rioting, burning, looting, and craziness, frankly. I think it's about time. I'm glad that the new tactical unit is nabbing some of these guys and charging them with the crimes they are committing. I'm all for peaceful protest. Martin Luther King was a great man, and we got the civil rights movement through because of his position. Now, there's some that'll tell you that he couldn't have accomplished what he accomplished without Malcolm X and the Black Panthers and the more violent side of the civil rights movement. I'm not sure if I believe that or if that's true, but I just don't think there's any excuse for what's going on. If you want to protest, I would join a protest like that. And I think what happened to Floyd was ridiculous. I teach combatives and have for 20 years, and it all stinks to me. Something is amiss there, for sure.
Right, agreed. Something is definitely amiss. Like you, I've taught combatives for many years to law enforcement, military, special forces, various people within the federal, local, and state governments. And I know you hold rank in the highest stand system, I believe under Neil Melanson, Gokor, Gene LaBelle, those guys, which is great. My rank is in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but nonetheless, we can both completely agree that something does stink to fucking high heavens, and that was a disgusting display that we saw, and it was straight murder. And I've said it till I'm blue in the face. If these guys were trained better, we could prevent a lot of that stuff. And I know the Fed here has some opinions on how the elected leadership has performed in the aftermath of such things.
Well, I'm just going to come out and say it. I think it's a bunch of pussies running the show in Portland and Seattle. And I think they need to find their nuts and take control of their cities and start leading like they were chosen to do by the people. This shit is nonsense, and it pisses me off.
Yeah, man, the Fed's preaching to the choir on this one. I think all sides can agree that elected officials have really shit the bed as of late, but this is nothing new. That's what elected officials do. They shit the bed. But fuck all the politics. We got the motherfucking natural Randy Couture in the house. So for round 2, Randy, and I ask this question a lot, who is the baddest motherfucker you have ever known, period? 5 rounds.
Ragu! The baddest person I ever came across, I don't know if we're talking about anywhere in life, that would be my mom. Single mom, raised 3 kids, all upstanding citizens with families of their own now, worked her ass off to raise us, keep us out of trouble, keep us in the right mindset and work for everything that we have. So she's always been, in my opinion, where I got my work ethic, and the baddest person that I know that came through that situation with grace. So as far as fights, I mean, if you want to talk about fights, I think the toughest fight I was ever in was the Pedro Hizo fight, the first one. I learned a lot in that fight, and that showed, I think, the second time we fought. So that was the toughest fight as far as fights, but I don't think that's what the question was. So I hope I answered it.
No, your answer was great, Randy. We actually share a matriarchal view on this subject, honestly. I would have to say my grandma was the toughest person I ever knew, period. She lived half a decade after a supposed concrete death sentence made by a head cardiologist of a major hospital. As a best case scenario, that was. And she made it off a ventilator 3 times in her late 80s into her early 90s with end-stage COPD. Most people can't do that once. Muma was otherworldly levels of tough. So shout out to Muma. Miss you, Muma. Love you very much. And my mom's pretty damn tough too. She comes in a close second. But moving on.
And also, by the way, for any of you guys that haven't seen the first Couture Pedro Hizo fight, go and watch it right now. It was an absolute dogfight. In many ways, it was ahead of its time, and really, really, really good.
Yeah, no doubt. It was an absolute classic. It's a must-watch for sure. But round 3 is yours, Fed.
So, Randy, you've had a lot of success in Hollywood after your fighting career. Congratulations, by the way. If they ever make a biopic of you, who is going to play Randy Couture?
Round Trinity!
Yes, I've had some success in Hollywood. That is a tough question. You know, I wrote an autobiography, and the idea for the autobiography came out of a script that somebody wanted to write about my life. I didn't really like the script, to be honest. It was all about fighting, and there's a lot more to my life than just fighting. So, man, I don't know, honestly, who would, you know what, maybe Chris Pratt. I know Chris, and Chris is an amazing guy and an amazing actor. He also is a very good wrestler. So I think Chris Pratt would be an amazing Randy Couture in that story.
Chris Pratt, that's an interesting choice. I was going to say maybe The Rock, but he's like the obvious pick. Maybe Vin Diesel, but he's kind of like a generation or two ago. So maybe the guy Tommy, the guy who played Tommy in Power. He's kind of looks like Randy. You know, you shave his head and throw a singlet on him or some 4-ounce gloves and it might be perfect.
So for round 4, Randy, I always wanted to ask you this. You were in the movie Redbelt early on in your acting career, and I thought you were great. But be honest with me, Randy. How bad was that script, man? 5 rounds. Round 4!
I did act in Redbelt. Dylan played a commentator, not a big stretch. Retired fighter commentator. It was a fun movie. David Mamet is brilliant. His dialogue is second to none. Chiwetel Ejiofor did an amazing job in 6 months to learn how to grapple and to pull that off in that film. Now, yes, it was more oriented towards grappling, but I think the premise was good. I think there are a lot of mystical martial arts stuff out there that people pass off as self-defense, and it doesn't really work that way. So I don't know. I liked the movie. And I really enjoyed and learned a lot being around and working with David Mamet. So that's how I felt about it.
Hold on a minute, Randy. Flag on the play. Listen, you're an absolute legend who we both absolutely adore, but I got to unpack that response a little in all fairness for me and for the listeners. So you said the movie was geared more towards grappling, but the facts were completely convoluted. They were hinting that it was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is the grappling system that gave birth to the UFC, as everybody knows. But in the movie, it was anything but BJJ. I could tell you, coming from a dude who loves BJJ like nothing else in life, that shit was embarrassing. You also said that a lot of people add the mystical stuff and how that shit's not really practical. All the Death Stars and, you know, fucking Kung Fu Panda Claw, all that bullshit. I couldn't agree more. But that's exactly what they did in this movie. That's exactly what they did. They're picking rocks to see if one guy has to fight with an arm behind his back or a leg tied up. Randy, that shit was an embarrassment to mixed martial arts. It only served to confuse any casual observers that had the poor misfortune of watching that piece of shit. Again, you were great. I mean, no disrespect. I'm sorry. I don't know what I was expecting you to say. I know you're still doing things in Hollywood. I guess that guy's a big name or whatever. So I respect where you're coming from. So we'll just move on. We'll leave it at that. So for round 5, I want to hear your opinions on the upcoming rubber match for the UFC Heavyweight Championship of the World between Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic. How do you see that one playing out? 5 rounds. Round 5!
You know what? I am a big fan of DC. He's a cowboy just like me. We both went to Oklahoma State. He was after me. I love how he incorporates his wrestling into his fighting style. It's something that I aspired to do as well. Stipe is an amazing competitor and a very well-rounded fighter. And I think Daniel has to make Stipe wrestle him more in this fight if he wants to win. And it's going to be a knockdown drag-out. It's one of those coin tosses you just don't know. That's what makes the fight so interesting.
Agreed once again, Randall. I think DC does have to wrestle in this fight. Make Stipe really have to work along the fence. Burn out his arms defending those takedowns. Have him fill up with lactic acid. Maybe just take just enough pop off those punches. Just take enough sting off so he could get in there, maybe get him out of there, get the job done. Because Stipe can fucking crack. He's got major power, but so does DC. So, we shall see. Anything to add, Fed?
Yeah, yo, those first 2 DC Stipe fights were sick. Just sick, brutal. A lot of times when guys fight that hard, they're not the same afterwards. And, geez, those 2 dudes really beat the shit out of each other last time. I'll be real interested to see what the outcome is in the 3rd and final fight.
All right, Randy. Once again, an absolute pleasure having you on 5 rounds with Lawyer and the Fed. Anything else you want to say to the fans, to our skags listening and watching?
Thank you guys for all the questions. Take care, be well, and check out the YouTube channel, The Lawyer and the Fed. Worth taking a look at. Be well.
Thank you so much. Randy, the Natural Couture, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, that was amazing. What a fucking honor. So yes, sir, next week we have yet another former UFC champion and legend of the sport. So make sure you don't miss it. And if you haven't done so, like the video and hit that button and subscribe to 5 Rounds with Lawyer and the Fed. Peace.
Until next time.